I still remember the exact smirk on my dad's face when the lawyer said the words. There's no will. It wasn't just relief. It was something darker, something ugly. And then he looked straight at my aunt, my uncle, and even me, and said, "Well, I guess everything's mine now." The room went dead silent. My grandpa hadn't even been buried yet, and my dad was already claiming the entire estate like it was a prize he'd been waiting to win. I felt sick. Was I wrong for what I did next? Tell me honestly, if you were in my place, would you have stayed quiet, or would you have done exactly what I did? My grandpa was the kind of man people wrote stories about. He wasn't rich in the flashy way, but he had land. Acres of farmland that had been in our family for generations. A modest house that everyone gravitated toward during holidays, and a small savings account he barely touched. But more than that, he had respect. Everyone in the family knew that whatever he decided, we'd honor it. The problem was, he never wrote anything down. Growing up, I was closest to him. My parents were always busy, and my dad, well, let's just say he was never around emotionally. But Grandpa, he taught me how to fix things, how to cook simple meals, how to be patient. He'd sit with me for hours, telling stories about his youth, about how hard he worked to keep the land in the family. And one thing he always said stuck with me. This place isn't just mine. It belongs to all of us. That's why what happened after he died felt so wrong. The day we got the call, everything felt like it stopped. He had passed peacefully in his sleep, but it still hit like a truck. The house felt emptier than I'd ever known it. My aunt cried nonstop. My uncle tried to stay strong, and even my dad seemed quiet. For a moment, I thought maybe this would bring us together. I was wrong. 2 days after the funeral, my dad was already making calls. I overheard him talking to a lawyer, his voice low but urgent. "No will, are you sure?" he asked, then a pause, and then that tone I'll never forget, almost excited. Okay, I understand. That's when I started to worry. In our country, when someone dies without a will, the estate gets divided according to inheritance laws. It's not like everything just magically goes to one person. There's a process, and it's supposed to be fair. But my dad, he saw an opportunity. At the official meeting, the lawyer explained everything. Because of some technicalities, something about how certain assets were registered, my dad had the strongest claim over the main property. Not all of it, but enough that he could essentially control everything if he pushed hard enough. And push he did. My aunt tried to speak up. "That's not what Dad would have wanted," she said, her voice shaking. My dad leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and let out a short laugh. "Well, he should have written it down then, shouldn't he?" My uncle clenched his fists. "You know that's not fair." "Fair?" My dad shot back. "What's fair is what the law says. And the law says this is mine." And then he looked at me. "You don't have a problem with that, do you?" he asked, almost daring me to speak. I didn't say anything. Not then. But inside, something was boiling. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. My dad started acting like the house, the land. Everything had always belonged to him. He changed locks without telling anyone. He told my aunt she couldn't come by without calling first. He even started talking about selling part of the land. Selling it. The same land my grandpa had spent his entire life protecting. I confronted him one night. "You can't do this," I said. "That's Grandpa's legacy." He barely looked up from his phone. "It's my property now." "It's not just yours," I argued. "You heard what he always said." "Stop," he snapped, finally looking at me. "Don't lecture me about my own father." That hit hard. But I didn't back down. You know, he wanted all of us to share it. My dad stood up slowly, walked over to me, and lowered his voice. "Listen carefully," he said. "There's what people say, and there's what's real. What's real is that I have control now, and I'm not giving it up." That was the moment I realized. He wasn't grieving. Not really. He was celebrating, and that's when I made a decision. But before I tell you what I did, I need you to understand the position I was in. On one hand, this was my dad. On the other hand, I knew, deep down, that what he was doing was wrong. He was taking advantage of a technicality to cut his own siblings out of something they had just as much right to. And I had information, something he didn't know I had. So tell me, what would you have done? Would you have stayed loyal to your parent, even if they were clearly in the wrong? Or would you have stepped in, knowing it could tear your family apart? Pause for a second and think about it, because what I did next changed everything. A few months before my grandpa passed away, we had a conversation. It wasn't anything dramatic at the time, just one of those quiet afternoons where we were, sitting outside, watching the sunset. But he started talking about the future. I should probably get my affairs in order, he said. I nodded. Like a will? He smiled faintly. Yeah, something like that. I remember joking. Better hurry, or people are going to fight over your stuff. He didn't laugh. Instead, he looked at me seriously. That's exactly what I don't want. Then he went inside and came back with a small notebook. He flipped through a few pages and showed me something. It wasn't a formal document, nothing legal, but it was a list. He had written down who he wanted to have what. The land split between his children, the house to be shared, even smaller things like tools and furniture assigned to specific people. This is just for me, he said. A reminder. I'll make it official soon. But he never did. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But after everything that happened, that notebook became very important. I had taken a photo of that page on my phone. I don't even remember why. Maybe I thought it was interesting. Or maybe I just wanted to remember his handwriting. But now it was proof. Not legal proof, but something. I went to my aunt and uncle and showed them. My aunt started crying immediately. This is exactly what he told me, she said. My uncle nodded. He said the same to me. We decided to take it to a lawyer. Not the same one my dad was using, someone independent. The lawyer looked at the photo, listened to our story, and leaned back in his chair. This isn't a will, he said. But it could still matter. How? I asked. If you can prove that your father is acting against the known wishes of the deceased, there may be grounds to challenge his control, especially if other heirs are being unfairly excluded. That was our opening. When my dad found out, he was furious. You went behind my back? He shouted at me. I did what was right, I said, my voice shaking but firm. You're my child, he yelled. You're supposed to be on my side. I am on the right side, I replied. That shut him up for a moment. But the look in his eyes, I'll never forget it. The legal battle wasn't easy. It dragged on for months. There were arguments, accusations, and more tension than I thought possible. My dad tried to paint my aunt and uncle as greedy, as people who didn't deserve anything. But the more he talked, the more it became clear that he was the one acting out of greed. In the end, the court didn't treat the notebook as a will, but it did. Consider it as evidence of my grandpa's intentions, combined with testimony from my aunt, uncle, and even neighbors who had heard him talk about his wishes. It was enough. The estate was divided fairly. My dad didn't get everything, not even close. The day the decision came down, he didn't say a word to me. He just walked out of the courtroom, his face pale and tight. We haven't spoken much since. The house is still in the family now. Shared like my grandpa wanted. The land hasn't been sold. And every time I walk through that old front door, I feel like I did the right thing. But it wasn't easy. I lost my relationship with my dad over it. Maybe permanently. Some days that still hurts. But then I think about my grandpa. About what he stood for. About what he trusted us to protect. And I know I couldn't have stayed silent. So that's my story. If you were in my place, would you have done the same thing? Or would you have let it go to keep the peace? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your thoughts. And if you think I made the right choice, go ahead and like this video. Don't forget to subscribe for more real, intense stories like this. And seriously, tell me what you would have done. Because I still think about that question all the time. I'll see you all in the next story.